Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Makers Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me I have an amazing lady, Miss Rebecca Maas, the Parent Complimenter.
Compliment.
Right? It's really cool. So I love Rebecca and how she shows up in our community and her energy. I wanted to make sure that you guys have a chance to be introduced to her and the important topic. Rebecca, thank you for being here, taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. And audience members, thank you for tuning in. Rebecca, can you tell them a little bit more about yourself and what you do and how you got involved doing what you do? And we'll go from there.
Yes, absolutely. Though first, I do want to say thank you for the community and all of you listening. I think it's just a pleasure to continue learning in life in general. And that's kind of where my path comes from. I've always been interested in learning new things. I've always been engaged, speaking with others, and just the joy that comes from hearing something you haven't thought about before. So I had been trained as a teacher and was working for many years in a particular field that people like to pick on, but I just love how it connects to life. And I used to have this theme that said, hey, anything in life is math. You tell me what you want it to be, and I'll tell you how it's math. And really enjoyed the challenge of connecting with individuals and students and working with the families too in the educational setting and how to make that make sense, because everyone has a oftentimes people have a uh very colorful story that goes with their history of learning. And I was teaching secondary at this time and continued learning in many different styles of educational settings, students of different ages, and each time felt like I was getting, closer and closer to what I felt like would reach the most students and what would make the most sense so that every child, it's always been my passion that every individual really gets to express and culminate their purpose here on
Right.
this world and getting closer and closer to that. So I was attending a meeting where I heard this woman speak about a program she had created. And I felt like it just was so fitting because not every child who is in the class is really ready to absorb the information that I was there to present.
Right.
And to me, that actually kind of turned into a bigger issue than just the problem solving itself in terms of communicating math and looking at, okay, well, this kind of trumps the content at the moment.
Right.
So having learned more about that and really diving deeper into the world of positive parenting, I said this is so necessary and I can see its application all over. And I had that transition time and it wasn't always easy, and I may be making it sound like it was all just a smooth flow of transition. There was definitely difficulty in there as well at that point in time, and learning about the whole business aspect of everything and how it all flows together. Yet when you can see the difference that this program makes in families' lives, really going from frustration in a place just that's not good for our family health,
Right.
and can flip it in sometimes even a few weeks. Sometimes it can that change just when our brains can make those connections and learn from a different perspective. Sometimes it can be just completely shifting into a new paradigm.
Right. Actually,
So
Rebecca, you mentioned something that was really important, which is the ability of somebody to receive should trump you giving information, advice, be it a parent, be it a teacher with educational content. And sometimes we forget about that. And the funny thing is, we ourselves are not always ready to receive. Let's say you come home from a really busy day and you've just had it and you just need 5 minutes to yourself. That is not the best time to be discussing a really important event with you, right? So, why is it that we don't do that for our children that are actually learning at a much faster pace and there's a lot more demand on them to perform and things like that as well? So that was really important, and I wanted to make sure that audience members caught that because you have a lot of valuable points there. So what are some of the typical challenges? You mentioned frustrations, but what are some of the typical challenges that you see audience members come to you with, families come to you with, be it about themselves, be it about the kids that really need your attention.
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to it, there's that feeling just like this just isn't quite working right for us and something needs to shift. A lot of times you'll find that the parents are repeating themselves over and over. There's just kind of this general sense of maybe rushing about our lives and not really feeling like we know our kids very deeply.
Right.
As well as, some students may have a recent diagnosis, or the family might be in that natural transition phase, which can be really handy and just learning some more skills in how to manage this.
Absolutely. And now, oftentimes, in order for us to see change in life, it's not just important to want the change, but also be willing to change ourselves, right? Otherwise, you get the same results. So, what are some of the challenges that you see parents facing in breaking habits and behaviors that contribute to the problem? Like, what are those challenges?
Yeah, a lot of times it's really just not having been open to that perspective before. A lot of parents can study, yet oftentimes in those stress times, we kind of go back, revert to what we grew up with
Mhm.
sometimes. So there can be a disconnect between what we understand and what we are intending to do and what our body kind of naturally flows into. And so oftentimes helping our body to release that and look at it from a slightly different perspective can be enough to shift that understanding.
Got it. Okay. So what would be some of the suggestions and tips that you have for parents? And by the way, when we're talking about this, is there a specific age group or even gender that this becomes more applicable to?
Sure, I'm glad that you asked. So I've been working mostly when the kids are between the ages of 5 and 8. That's sort of a special age where, we're seeing whether our style that we've started with, how's that kind of flowing, and as they're becoming more independent. So
Mhm.
that's also a great age because the kids are still learning in their freshness. Now, that being said, this program does work with kids who are from verbal through the teenage years. And I like to say even between adults. It's really valuable.
Cool.
But, as long as we can, when we can, we want to try to bring this a little bit earlier because then we're creating those habits for a longer run.
Do they usually show up with academic or social challenges, or is it purely at home with relationships at home?
So in that same age group as well, that is starting, to be out into the community, oftentimes in a school setting and situation where these things pop up, because as parents, we of course love and believe our children to be great at so many things, and they are, right? Those talents and being able to come out, and sometimes there can even be a special set of kids whose talents are um, slightly compressed in that school setting situation. So, special attention in how to meet the needs of children who are very physically active and verbal.
Got it. Okay, good to know. All right. So what's the entry point? First of all, how would parents, like you mentioned, that if they're repeating themselves, that was one of the examples, or the frustration in the relationship, is there anything that they should look for in the kids as red flags, things that, oh, you know what, this is a Rebecca case. I need to call her and ask her about this. What would be some of those things that would tip the parents that they actually need to seek support?
Yeah, I would say if they just had that thought, that might be a good case, But yes, oftentimes, so when we're looking at in the home, the situation is that maybe we're feeling like the kids aren't listening to us, right? They're not responding to our requests, or they're not really even being able to express what their needs are.
Mhm.
So maybe we could say they're moody, we could say they're closed off, or just get upset really quickly.
Okay. Is that the same as being distant, or that's different?
It is very similar because most of the time these kids are looking for connection, and they're looking for a deeper connection, that they're not feeling like their needs are being met, even though as parents, busy parents, we say they have food, they have a place to rest, they have clean clothes, I'm giving them all that they should need, and it can be easy to miss that emotional piece sometimes.
Okay.
So there's more of that in the schools as well naturally these days, but being able to really have a deep understanding relationship between the parent and the child can be a piece that just totally changes behavior.
All right.
And we like to remember that behavior is always a connection. um, Behavior, no matter whether it's behavior that's not as socially appropriate, like yelling or hitting, or a behavior that's just refusing to speak to someone or say, no, I don't like you, mommy, I want a new mommy, or something like that. It's really the communication just saying, hey, what can we look at here? They're not doing it to hurt your feelings. They're not doing it because they don't um, um sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second there, but really is that they're just communicating that something's off for them.
Okay. And I guess one other question that comes up now, my kids are very different, like day and night. So would you say that in this in your experience, if is there something that to watch out for if one sibling has it, that the other one's going to have it, or they're completely independent? Or meaning that is this runs across the entire kids, or is it just that particular to that kid?
So, like you said, your kids are very different, and the way that you treat them as a parent can be reflective of their actions as well.
Right.
So, sometimes parents want to try to do the same thing for each one of them, but they know that that's not really the case and how it's going to work. So,
Right.
oftentimes, kids who are feeling a little less connection are going to be the ones that are more different from their parents.
Right.
So it takes just an extra little bit of understanding to know where they're coming from so that they can have clearer communication together.
Perfect. Perfect explanation. That outlines it well. All right. So what are the tips? What are some of the things that parents can do for themselves? And what are some of the things that they should support, inspire, and empower their kids to do to move in the right direction?
Yeah, great question. So everyone listening is like, yeah, I want to get started right away, right? And the very first thing that we say is make sure your self-care is taken care of. Because when we can stay calm in a situation, we're actually modeling to our children the behavior that we would like. Unfortunately, it's also true when we get really upset and frustrated, we're modeling to our kids that that's how they should behave when things aren't going the way they want them to go.
Okay.
So, when we can make sure that our self care is complementing our needs, then we have a better chance of being calm when things are getting a little shaky.
Okay. I love it. I love it. All right. So I know that this can get a lot more complicated the more you dive into it. So what would be a good way for parents and our families to connect with you and find out more about what you do?
Yeah, so those who are listening say right away that yes, I want to talk about my self-care. We do actually have a breathwork certification that can help to access that. And you can find out more about that by visiting the Facebook page or even Googling our website, Numa EDU LLC. And those of you who want to, learn a little bit more, you can find out there as well. And we have a free bingo board that you can print off to actually help you get started right away with your family and making those deeper connections. So feel free to use it like a family game, or maybe you just want to post it on the fridge and glance at it every once in a while to spark a new idea and like, oh yeah, I haven't asked about that lately, and start that conversation rolling.
I love it. I love it. I love everything that has to happen with growing the bonds within the family, improving communication so that everybody, not just the kids, but also the parents feel more seen and heard it because it's a thankless job at times. So absolutely, this is important. And self-care is a big part of it. It's like usually when you have these trouble areas, one of the issues that happens is you're putting more and more into it, but you're not necessarily getting anything back. So it kind of empties your cup. So that self-care is extremely important for that, making sure that we role model that behavior. So audience members, first and foremost, I want to make sure that you actually role model the behavior of asking for help and showing that we don't necessarily have all the answers, but there are good and well-intentioned people willing to support us. And the way you do that is by making sure that you check Rebecca's details as far as all the amazing stuff that she's provided in the description, and check it out, connect with her, and have an opportunity to ask for additional support and help should you need to. And in that process, role model the behavior to the kids that they're not alone. They don't need to do everything by themselves, that there is help out there, and this is how you do it. So make sure you do that. If you haven't already done so, make sure you click subscribe so you get notifications of all the experts just like Rebecca that come here, share their message, share their expertise and gifts with you. And Rebecca, once again, thank you so much for being here and doing what you do. This day and age where parents and families are being pulled in so many different directions, and there's fewer and fewer times for them to connect, your work becomes that much more important. So I really appreciate what you do for the community. Any final words for our audience members before we finish today?
Being able to connect with ourselves in that moment, right,
Right.
is really a powerful tool. And one final thing that I could offer is a little bit of a challenge, because in addition to all those resources out there, something that we can access in that moment is square breathing. So what that looks like is you breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, in proportion. So give it a try next time you feel like you can feel those bubbles rising, and help yourself stay calm, help yourself respond and not react. And really, I appreciate all the work that we're doing, because we are a village, and each one of our individual families, as we reach out together, builds us stronger. So thank you for the work that you, Dr. L. Thank you all for listening and the work that you're putting in with your families as well.
Beautifully said. Thank you. And I can testify that that works because I actually tried it with all my neurodiverse kids, and it literally, with a pulse oximeter, would show them lower their pulse, increase their oxygen saturation in the blood, and their brain was better equipped to handle the situation. So do what she says. Do what Rebecca says. Definitely. Absolutely love it. We'll be in touch. And until next time, guys, cheers.
Thank you.